Hello Satnam, it's me Shakti Sundari back with you today for the next reading from the Radiance Sutras. Coming to you today, or right now anyway, from a place of feeling more aching in my heart today, just because I've had, just the universe has given me these reminders of my former beloved, and it's just like all these signs and reminders have just come at me without really my head being in that space. They've just come, and it's just kind of opened up this heart of mine again, and feeling just a little bit more of an ache in my heart center. So I'm just being with that. And when I feel that, it's like my smile doesn't come quite so automatically to my face, I notice. But it's also okay. It sort of brings this warmth, this heat into my chest. So I know that, well, this is how I explain it to myself anyway. The heat that I feel in my chest is, and the ache is just the opening of my heart and the creating of more space for love to flow into my being and through my being. And today we are on Yukti verse 102, which means that after this there are only 10 more Yukti verses left, which is pretty amazing. On that note, I've sustained a commitment to this practice of reading the sutras every day live, although I've not been doing it at the same time every day. And it's been wonderful for me to have that commitment and the connection to these verses and what they connect me to every day in my life, which, my life has been kind of going like this, and then every day I've had these verses. So with that in mind, and just having spoken to friends and clients, I'm going to be offering an online course within a couple of weeks to support you in instigating and sustaining a daily practice of connection. So more on that coming from me soon. But back to today's verse, Yukti verse 102, which carries on the theme of the last 2 days. Actually, they do all, there are specific themes that resonate, that are repeated again and again, and this is more of the same of yesterday's and the days before as well. So Yukti verse 102 from the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. Sama shatrau cha mitre cha sama mana ava manayo brahmana paripurnatvat iti jnatva sukhi bhavet. Hi guys, I'm just going to read that again. Sama shatrau cha mitre cha sama mana ava manayo brahmana paripurnatvat iti jnatva sukhi bhavet. The English translation for this one, each of the verses, there are only always 2 lines, but the translation is sometimes very brief and sometimes quite long. Today's translation by Lauren Roche is long and meaty. So, it's always the same. Barbarians and blockheads, rival queens and kings. The drama rolls on and on. When people honor you, you're supposed to feel honored. When you don't get respect, they expect you to sulk in indignation. 1 minute you're cruising on a throne in the sky. The next, you are standing on some bleak patch of dirt. I say, the sun regards all with a steady eye. The force sustaining earth and sky calls everyone to awaken from this trance. This whole world revolves around an axis, and I am that. When you are friends with the friend to all beings, nothing is the same. Rich beyond measure, abundant beyond counting, you can move through this life laughing. Opinions of others have no rulership over you. I find these words so comforting and so inspiring and so useful to remind me day after day to stay on track. This verse is carrying on the theme very much of yesterday, which was about how we tend to put ourselves into these polarized opposite states, or we tend to judge ourselves and others and put ourselves or others into these polarized states of opposites, of good and bad, of one or the other. And here again is that theme of finding the neutral, awakened, ecstatic space in between all of those polarities. It's always the same. Barbarians and blockheads rival queens and kings. You know, history, look back through history and all the stories that have been written and all the stories that have been told and all the myths and fairy tales, as well as, well, even if, you know, written history probably is most of it mythology anyway, because it's just one person's perspective. But the story of humankind, you could see it very much as this battle between good and evil, the good and the bad, you know, in all the movies, all the Hollywood movies, you know, there's always the goodie and the baddie, isn't there? Barbarians and blockheads rival queens and kings, so good and bad, masculine and feminine, power and domination and control and all of that stuff that's been going on for centuries and centuries. The drama rolls on and on because, yes, if we get locked into those polarities, there's inevitably going to be a drama. When people honor you, you're supposed to feel honored. When you don't get respect, they expect you to sulk in indignation. So once again, what this highlights is the dependency on external validation or external approval to feel valuable, to feel of worth. So I do this too, and I used to do it a lot more than I do now, but it used to really be a big thing for me. Like whatever anybody said to me, I would take it so personally. And, you know, it could really, really, really knock me off center completely. Any kind of teasing, any kind of negative comment. But of course, you know, if we take, for example, the 4 agreements, which are a wonderful guide to, just 4 simple agreements, wonderful guide to conscious living. One of those 4 agreements is don't take anything personally. Nothing anybody says is actually about you, it's about themselves. So it's a really good one to remember, but it took me a long time to really get that. And of course, you know, if we're dependent upon what the outside world tells us, we're going to then oscillate. That's a good word, isn't it? We're going to oscillate constantly between feeling good about ourselves and feeling shit about ourselves. What we have to, I don't like to say that in that way, but where we can get to is a state of knowing our own worth and knowing our own value, which comes from a sense of connection with our own selves, with our true selves, with our higher selves, whatever you want to call it, where we know that we're untouchable in that sense at our core. So whatever is said on the outside doesn't really affect us because we know and hold our own worth and our own understanding of who we truly are within our own being. So we don't need to go and sulk in indignation or puff ourselves up with pride and self-importance when somebody flatters us, because it's great. Like, ego loves to be stroked. I mean, I love to have my ego stroked. Of course I do. Like, if someone says to me, you're beautiful, you know, like my whole being kind of goes, oh, you know, and it expands and feels blossoming and wonderful. But if I end up becoming dependent upon that for my own self-worth, that's a really dangerous, dodgy situation to get myself into. One minute you're cruising on a throne in the sky. You know, wow, you're cruising on a throne in the sky. How glorious is that? Yesterday my kids were telling me about a carnival parade that they watched last week, and there are all these beautiful young women dressed as queens and princesses riding by in decorated cars and waving to everybody. You know, that feeling of being above everybody and being so beautiful and being admired. The next, you're standing on some bleak patch of dirt. Quite the contrast. Yeah. So how do we escape from that oscillation, from that feeling up and feeling down, being dependent on the outer? I say, the sun regards all with a steady eye. The force sustaining earth and sky calls everyone to awaken from this trance. Wake up! This whole world revolves around an axis, and I am that. I, you know, the big I, whatever you get, again, whatever you want to call that, God, source, goddess, divine, nature, whatever that is for you, and I am that, the still center. And also you are that, and I am that. We are all God, goddess, we are all divine. We all have the still center within us. Awaken from the trance and recognize that still center within yourself. Again, reference to the Sushmuna, the still center, that place that never changes, which is eternal and undying. When you are friends with the friend to all beings, capital F-A-B, big friend, nothing is the same. I don't know why, but now this just made me think about being friends with Jesus. There must be like some echo of when I was a Christian or something like that. But yeah, like when you're friends with the friend to all beings, meaning when you are friend with the divine in yourself, nothing's the same. Rich beyond measure, abundant beyond counting. Nothing to do with money, necessarily. Although not excluding money, but rich beyond measure. So beyond measure cannot be measured. Abundant beyond counting. So abundant you couldn't possibly ever get to the end of it. Like, that's infinite. You can move through this life laughing. Opinions of others have no rulership over you. So it's not assuming a false arrogance or superiority. It's actually coming to the humble acknowledgement of your insignificance in a way, of this outer form, but the absolute significance of the inner form. Does that make sense? What does it really matter? What does it really matter? You know, this outer layer, these outer reflections. So today's meditation, today's practice is to make friends with the friend to all beings. To recognize that the sun that's there is always there with a steady eye. To expand our perception, to remember that, to recall that. So when we get pulled into one of these dramas, to just remember that we are so much more than that, to perhaps laugh to ourselves, to count our blessings, so that we become eventually immune to what is happening outside, because really it's only what we are courting on the inside that counts. That's my reading for today. Thank you for being with me, guys. Lovely to see you there. Yeah, thank you. Much love to you and Satnam, and I'll be back with you tomorrow.